My work is in restoring facial movement and the smile. It took a journey for me to get here today. We did two surgeries for her, and here she is with a smile and also with her eye opened. I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is the work that I want to do.
이 프로그램은 시작부터 끝까지 든든하게 동행하는 CBB 뱅크 제공입니다.
Let me start with a question. When you get up in the morning, what is the first thing that you do? All of us have a routine. And I imagine you might get out of bed, go to the bathroom, wash your face, and look in the mirror. And what if on that day you looked in the mirror and your face wasn't moving? It was paralyzed. How would you feel? How would you feel about going out into the world, about seeing your friends, and maybe even meeting new people? Terrifying, I think. Because facial expression and a smile is so important to how we see ourselves and also how others see us. My work is in restoring facial movement and the smile. Now, I didn't start out wanting to be a facial plastic surgeon, never mind one who specializes in vascular anomalies or facial nerve disorders. It took a journey for me to get here today. My name is Teresa O, and I'm a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon in New York. That journey was at times circuitous, and so I'd like to share with you some of the building blocks, the people and the mentors that shape the person that I am and the work that I do today. My family and I immigrated from Seoul, South Korea to Toronto, Canada in 1971. I was fortunate, my brother and I, that my parents showed us a very hard work ethic, strong work ethic. So these are my parents. They were my first role models. They were always encouraging and inspiring, and they made my brother and I feel that we could be anything that we wanted to be. And from a very early age, I can remember thinking that I wanted to do something meaningful and purposeful in life. My great uncle, 할아버지, Dr. Moon, was a small town country pediatrician. And he came back from a medical conference and he gave me this little book. It was a throwaway brochure, but it was full of beautiful transparencies, color transparencies of the human body. And I was fascinated with these images. I was also inspired by the work that he did with children. And I decided at that time that I too wanted to be a doctor. And I was always at the top of my class for, until 9th grade. And I moved to a new high school and I was struggling. I was struggling in English and I needed an English tutor. And her name was Sophia Friesen, and she became my next mentor. Not only did she teach me how to write, how to decode Shakespeare's Hamlet, but she also became a trusted confidant. And during the same time, I also volunteered at the Toronto Sick Kids Hospital as a candy striper. I was really struck by how drab and uninspiring hospital spaces, these spaces of healing, were. And so I took a little detour and I applied to architecture school. I decided I'm going to do something about this. And it was in my first critique. Critique is where you present your project and there are a row of 5 or 6 professors sitting in front of you, and they just seemed to be grilling me with questions. And I froze, like I didn't know what to say. And at that time, Professor Vince Mulcahy jumped up from his seat and he said, "Teresa, you have to put on your intellectual sneakers." He essentially came up with the whole narrative of my project, and over the next 4 years was so inspiring in his creativity. He taught me how to design, and more importantly, he taught me how to solve problems. Well, I did go on to work as an architect. I worked in New York and then in Korea. I worked for 공간, or Space Group. And although I had very challenging fun, amazing projects, there was a disconnect between the work that I was doing and the people I might be influencing. And I wanted to have more of a direct impact on patients' or people's lives, which is why I returned to this idea of studying medicine. And so at the age of 29, I enrolled in medical school, and this is where I met my next mentor, Dr. Chet Pierce. I was writing an article for a medical journal, and he was the editor. He gave me opportunities to teach at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and he also showed me what a career as a clinician and an educator could be like. I'm grateful to Dr. Pierce for that time in my life. In residency, you have to choose a medical specialty, and I wanted to do something with my hands, something that was three-dimensional and reconstructive, something that was a little difficult, or I thought it would be, and so I chose head and neck surgery. It wasn't until the fourth year of medical school where I met Dr. Milton Weiner, and he was the first person to ask me, what do you want to do when you finish here the year? I said, geez, I don't know. But you know, I would love to do what you do in treating patients with vascular anomalies. Why not? He said, of course, I can train you. And so I started working with Dr. Weiner, and one day a little girl came in and she had a vascular anomaly on her face, and she also had facial paralysis. She wasn't moving her face. Well, she returned a year later, and this time her face was moving. I thought, wow. This is amazing. This is the work that I want to do. And so I found out that her surgeon was Dr. Tessa Hadlock at the Mass Eye and Ear Infirmary. I reached out to Tessa and she agreed to train me. And so the work that I do today, I'm so thankful for her for teaching me the skills in facial reanimation. Remember that detour into architecture? Well, it turns out that my education and my work as an architect is so foundational to the work that I do today. And so I'd like to share with you some examples of patients that we've treated over the years. This is little Nagalem. She's a 5-year-old who came to us from Ethiopia. Nagalem has a very large venous malformation. A venous malformation is made up of abnormal veins, and it will just grow and grow and grow. In Africa, just like in other parts of the world, a child with a deformity is seen as having a bad omen. So essentially, she was hidden away in her hut, and she did not go to school. And so we, through the Weiner Foundation, the Heal the Children, and the hospital, we were able to bring Nagalem to New York and do the surgery pro bono. And here she is after surgery. Here she is being welcomed home by her mother and all the villagers upon her return. And I want to tell you that Nagalem is now in school, and she's very socially active and part of the community overall. This is 6-month-old little baby, Analia from Pennsylvania. Analia has a hemangioma of her eyelid. Now, did you know that 1 in 10 kids is born with a hemangioma? Really common, really, really common. But in places like the eye, it can actually cause blindness, and that's the problem, and that's the reason for early intervention. So with one surgery, it took maybe 1 to 2 hours, we were able to remove the hemangioma, and now she has 20/20 vision. This young woman came to us from Israel. She has something called an arterial venous malformation. An AVM, as they're called, can cause life-threatening bleeds, and that was the problem for her. This was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So she came, we did surgery, again, a few hours surgery, and here she is. She sent us a photo of her at a social event just 6 months later. Here's baby Sloan. Baby Sloan came to us from the Midwest United States of America. She has something called also a hemangioma, very large, and it can be very destructive of the normal tissues. So we did a few surgeries for her, and although she's come a very long way, she has one more small surgery to go to give her even more symmetry. Now you might be wondering, how do we do this? How do we restore facial movement and expression? Well, one of the surgeries that we can do, thanks to medical technology, is we can harvest a muscle from the patient's own leg. It's called the gracilis muscle. And we can bring it up to the face. And we plug it into a nerve, which we may have transplanted earlier, an artery, and a vein. And then we wait several months. We wait for those nerves to grow into the muscle. So here is Mariah from South Carolina, and we did the same surgery. So Mariah has congenital facial paralysis, which means that she was born with facial palsy on one side. So now you see she's got a nice cheek mound and good smile. Now I want to tell you about Erwin. Erwin is from the Netherlands. He has something called bilateral facial paralysis and lymphatic malformation. He's actually giving me the biggest smile he can give me, and there's nothing, right? You don't see anything. So he was a social hermit. He never left his apartment. He worked in IT and in computers, which means he didn't have to interface with people. Afterwards, we gave him 2 muscle transfers, one for each side of his face. And here he is smiling. And he told us afterwards that, now I can go to the market by myself and I can buy my own food. He's actually become so social. He's a huge social media presence. He's traveled the world, and he himself has become an educator. Rachel, at 25 years of age, Rachel was living a healthy, happy life. She had a massive stroke. She had 3 brain surgeries and then was left unable to walk, talk, speak, eat, or see. And here she is in a wheelchair. She underwent aggressive physical therapy over 2 years. And then she came to me to treat the facial paralysis. So we did 2 surgeries for her, and here she is with a smile and also with her eye opened. Rachel is really inspiring to all of us. She actually wrote a memoir and published it about her whole journey and also educates other people about brain strokes. And finally, Tali. Tali has a large hemangioma. She had it removed and then reconstructed. And Tali is really inspirational. I mean, you can see the kind of smile, her personality. She recently graduated from the University of Washington. She worked as an intern in our office, also mentoring high school students and college students. And she's become very active in our foundation, the Weiner Children's Foundation. So I stand here before you today because of the support of my parents and the mentors who I've met along the way. I'm thankful to them for their influence and open to the many more I may meet in the future. I'm also grateful to the residents and fellows that I teach because they're inspiring every day, and to the patients that we treat every day for sharing their stories and their journeys of perseverance and endurance with us. As a side note, I want to tell you that Milton Weiner is now my husband, and we have the privilege of operating together and through the Weiner Foundation continuing to treat patients who could not otherwise access care. So in closing, I would like to leave you with these thoughts. Who is your mentor? Think about who you have mentored. And finally, how can you be a mentor to make a positive difference in someone's life? Thank you very much.
이 프로그램은 시작부터 끝까지 든든하게 동행하는 CBB 뱅크 제공이었습니다.